The Cauldron of Curiosities would like to welcome the merry month of May. We're exploring the hedgerows of Cornwall and looking at how these trees and plants can help with self-care and intertwine a weaving of stories, poems and songs that resonate with where we live. Welcome to another hedgerow self-care. Today we are going to be meeting the ash tree. Now the ash tree is often recognised by the black tips that curve up from the branches. But there are, as you know, a few myths too. But I'd like to start today with a poem, because we're looking at poems and myths and songs that are associated with the different trees and plants in the Cornish hedgerows. And this one I thought was quite apt because it's called The Well of St. Keen. A well there is in the West Country, and a clearer one never was seen. There is not a wife in the West Country that has heard of the Well of St. Keen. An oak and an elm tree stand beside, and behind doth an ash tree grow, and a willow from the bank above droops to the water below. A traveller came to the Well of St. Keen, joyfully he drew nigh, for from the cockcrow he had been travelling, and there was not a cloud in the sky. He drank of the water so cool and clear, for thirsty and hot was he, and he sat down upon the bank under the willow tree. There came a man from the house hard by, at the well to fill his pail. On the well side he rested it, and he bade the stranger hail. Now art thou a bachelor, stranger? Quoth he, for an if thou hast a wife, the happiest draught thou hast drunk this day, that ever thou didst in thy life. Or has my good woman, if one thou hast, ever here in Cornwall been? For an if she have, I'll venture my life, she has drank of the Well of St. Keen. I have left a good woman who never was here, the stranger he made reply, but that my draught should be the better for that, I pray you answer me why. St. Keen, quoth the Cornish man, many a time drank of his crystal well, and before the angel summoned her, she laid on the water a spell. If the husband of this gifted well shall drink before his wife, a happy man thenceforth is he, for he shall be master for life. But if the wife should drink of it first, God help the husband then. The stranger stooped to the Well of St. Keen and drank of the water again. You drank of the well, I warrant betimes, he said to the Cornish man. He to the Cornish man said, but the Cornish man smiled as the stranger spake, and sheepishly shook his head. I hastened as soon as the wedding was done, and left my wife in the porch. But in faith she had been wiser than me, for she took a bottle to church. So that's quite funny, isn't it? So the Cornish man was warning the stranger because he had been caught out by the very piece. I'm not so sure that I'm liking the idea that the man should rule his house, but I know there's a lot of people who believe that men should rule over their house. But hopefully nowadays it's a little bit more equal than that. The ash is part of a triumvirate with the thorn and the oak, and you may hear it referred to as oak, ash and thorn. Do have a Google and see what you can find. Yggdrasil, the world tree in Viking mythology, grew on an island surrounded by the ocean, there in the depths of which the world serpent lay. The ash tree's trunk reached up to the heavens, and its boughs spread out all over the countries of the earth, its roots reaching down into the underworld. A squirrel, it was said, would run up and down the tree carrying messages from the serpent, gnawing at the roots, to the eagle that sat in the canopy and back. A deer fed on the ash leaves, and from its antlers flowed the great rivers of the world. They said that there was also a magical goat which grazed at this tree, Yggdrasil, and its udders dispensed not milk, but mead for the warriors in Odin's great hall. Odin's great hall is where the gods held council, and this occurred under the canopy of their guardian tree. Odin, the foremost god of the Vikings, once hung himself on Yggdrasil. This was part of his sacrifice because he wanted to gain knowledge, and he was rewarded with gaining great insight and wisdom. But he also lost his eye, which is why people may have pictures of Odin, or he is known as Odin, one eye. Odin has great knowledge of a system of the runes which he gained from hanging upside down. If you think about it, hanging upside down does allow the blood to run to the head, but I'm not quite sure that it's something that I would choose to do myself. But Odin and Thor also had magical spears made of ash wood, and after this, many people who were warriors would make their spear shafts out of ash, and if there was no yew, they would also make their bows and arrows out of ash. There are words in the Anglo-Saxon for spear, which is the word esh, and the Norse word for ash was ask. These words, they believe, highly influenced some areas in Scotland such as Port Ascaig, and the Vikings were also referred to as ashling or eskling, meaning the men of ash. Like the Vikings, I have found the Gauls also thought of the ash tree as protective, and there's some influence in Celtic or Celtic culture where 5 legendary guardians of trees of Ireland, 3 were of ash. And in the Isle of Man, they said that the ash tree guards the purity of the spring. And if you think back to the poem about the spring of St. Keen, there's an ash tree there. Is it guarding its purity, and how does it do that? That's something for another day, because I think that's going to require some extreme searching to find the information around how the ash might filter the water, possibly. In British folklore, the ash was credited with a range of protective and healing properties. Many of these are related to children's health, and newborn babies were popularly given a teaspoon of ash sap. If a child was ailing, they would be passed for a cleft of the ash tree or an ash sapling to help cure them. And there was an association where people would have their own ash tree, and they became very protective of them because it was linked to their life and their being well. And I found within the treesforlife.org.uk this other aspect about Ash Wednesday. Apparently, in parts of England, children used to bring a twig of black-budded ash to school on Ash Wednesday, and any child who did not bring their own ash twig were risking having their feet stomped on by the twig-bearing children. How does the ash relate to self-care? Well, we've heard that within mythology there's an element of healing, and I believe there's an element of balance within relationships. And you might want to ask yourself in your journal, is there anything in your life that needs to be healed? And are you able to see the magic in every day? And my question for you is, are you living the best version of your life? You can always seek assistance with a coach if you think you need a little bit of help. And I'm going to finish with some words about the ash. The ash black tips like cold jewels of jet morning spirits past, the curve of a graceful bough smiling through winter's last. Step through the portal carved for fairy foot and do not look back. Hagstone in pocket, primrose swallowed, glass bottle wrapped in my pack. Ready for adventure to slide down into another dimension, imagined planes. Waiting for me to arrive, embracing my innocence, my courage, my drive. Thank you for walking with me today. You may want to spend some time with an ash tree. Look out for the cold tips of the ash. It's a beautiful tree and one we should appreciate. Tomorrow we will meet another guide from a hedgerow. But today, let the ash keep you company.